the original founding story of the company is a funny one. Tommy Longo was working for one of our competitors when he first came here. And he was a supervisor within the produce area. And his manager came in one day, and this was back in the days when there was no Sunday shopping and the grocery stores were actually closed on Monday. So you would have had 2 days of the store being closed. And Tommy recognized that some of the produce was not going to, it was not going to be of good quality by the time Tuesday hit. So he took the opportunity to mark it down. The supervisor came in and said, "What are you doing?" And he explained why he chose to do the markdown. And the supervisor said, "We pay you to work, not to think." And that really gave Tommy the motivation to say, there's got to be something different. I'm going to start my own business.
Welcome, Liz. Welcome to Skilled. How are you?
I'm great. How are you today, Cheryl?
I am wonderful. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here today. Hoping that you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit about who you are, your background, your career story, and then most importantly, your role at Longos. Welcome.
Well, so Liz Volk, as you say, I've been with Longos. And for those of you that don't know Longos, Longos is a grocery chain here. We're based out of the Greater Toronto area in Ontario, Canada. And I've been with the organization 20 years. It's hard to believe. Leading the people function and, just super excited because this is our 70th year. We're going to be celebrating that. Longos is actually part of a larger grocery chain called Sobeys. And so we've gone into partnership with them a couple of years ago, almost 5 years ago now. Longos has over 40 locations and continuing to grow. We've got a few locations that we're going to be opening up shortly. So that's a little bit about kind of Longos and how long I've been here. I guess in terms of my career, I've always really enjoyed the retail space. That's where I have chose to hang out. For the most part, I've worked in grocery retail. I've worked in clothing retail. I've worked in quick serve restaurant industry. And really just enjoyed my time in all of those spaces because they're so people focused and it's also just super relatable as a consumer as well.
So can you share with us, I'm loving your background too, Liz. Can you share with us a bit about the Longos origin story and also about the culture there?
Absolutely. So 1956, the company was founded. 3 brothers, Tommy, Joe, and Gus Longo. You'll actually see I'm sitting in one of our meeting rooms here at our support center, and it's behind me is kind of a list of our values, and it's got a little bit of the history and some things regarding the 3 brothers. But they came over from Sicily, Italy, and their goal was to kind of start their own business together with an intention of really just serving providing great service. And they were really focused in kind of the produce, fruit. It was a fruit market stand in Toronto on Yonge Street, Castlefield. And they grew the business from there. It's just an incredible feat. Today we're over 40 locations, 6,000 team members, and our grocery stores are like a full stop grocery store, not just focused on fruits and vegetables. And really their founding intention that set I think a big part of the culture was not just to grow the business for sake of that. One part of it was really critical to them that any community they came into, they wanted to make sure that they were welcomed and it was seen as a good thing to enter the community. So their reputation was very important to them. But the other part of their reason for growth was really to provide team members opportunities for growth. They said, if we don't keep opening stores, people won't stay with us. And they won't have a career with us. And it was pretty simple for the founders that was what it was all about. And then for the longest period of time, our president and CEO, which was Anthony Longo, really led the organization. He was the son of Tommy, and he led the organization through growth. And then we had the opportunity to really shape the culture and take some of the original feedback from the founders and turn it into our treating you like family culture that we are today.
The treating you like family, that really resonates deeply with me. What makes that culture at Longo so special? Like, why is that so important, that treat you like family?
Well, it's interesting on a couple of levels. One, we about probably almost 20 years ago, pretty much when I first started, we worked with an organization to blueprint the company. So the concept of blueprinting your company is really, in 7 words or less, describe, you know, if your company left the universe today, what would be gone? What would be missing? Was really kind of the exercise. And so it's kind of definitely honing in on your purpose, but really, what's your secret sauce, I guess? And doing that in 7 words or less was quite an exercise. So it was our senior executive team and family members were involved, and it boiled down to treating you like family. And so from there, it's not just about treating you like family for our team members, but that's specific to our guests and our vendors. And we wanted to be very, like at some point, the team was concerned that would come across as a soft culture. But when you think about treating you like family, sometimes the toughest conversations you need to have because you care are with family. And that's how we view it. And in our stores, an example of how that plays out when we talk with our team members is we say to them, when it comes to quality, if you wouldn't serve this to your family at home, don't serve it to our guests. And that's one of our core principles. So we kind of take that concept of treating you like family and we use it in just so many different ways. And we share lots of stories. And we recognize really great service around that. And it's fascinating because we get weekly comment cards from our guests and weekly feedback that comes through on our loyalty program. And it's interesting because a lot of times people will talk about feeling like they're treated like family. It's funny how it actually plays out even sometimes in the words we get.
It's interesting because when you look at every company in the world has like what we call unique selling points, right? Like basically the 3 key reasons why would you go into Longos and not to, I don't know, a Safeway. I don't know if you have a Safeways. We have them a lot here. Yeah. Okay. We have them a lot. Yeah. We have them a lot in California. So why would you choose Longos over a Safeway or I don't know, another grocery chain? And one of your top 3 reasons are that, right? Because they will treat you like family, right? So I think this is very unique. Usually you don't see basically culture as a unique selling point of a business. I saw it, I told you before the episode with the Four Seasons. They also talk about that. I wonder, like, okay, so let's say you defined it. How do you make sure that, like, you like, what emphasis do you put on culture? How do you enforce that? How do you basically have like new people joining, being assimilated into that? So basically, and probably it's your job, basically, right, as the HR, to be kind of like the champion, the steward of that culture. So if you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because yes, there's no question it is a key part of my job, but it really is the entire organization. So we weave it into not only all of our people programs, but the business and the strategy that we have. It's woven into everything. It's woven into everyday life. A lot of it is through storytelling, and that can be everything from on our recognition platform that we use, telling those stories. It can be taking the guest comments that I talked about. Our current president, which is Deb Craven. She's our first non-family member running the business as president, and Anthony, our president and CEO, he stepped into an exec chair role. So one of the things Deb does to reinforce the culture is she actually goes through all of those guest comments, and she, probably on her weekend time and in the evenings, she'll go onto our recognition platform and she will take those positive guest comments and she puts them onto the platform, and then she highlights the team member and she can provide them points and do a whole bunch of good things. But those stories get shared across the company. And so people can see, oh, wow, that's what treating you like family is. That's the type of behaviors that we want to see. That would be an example. Operationally, we've operationalized some things. So we hear stories over and over again within our stores. Oh, it's interesting because when I come into your stores and I'm looking for a product, your team members walk me to the product. Well, that's by design. We have a program called Take Me There, and it's been instilled since the founders have had the business that that's what you do is you take the guest to the product. And if we don't have that product, you create a conversation and see if there's an alternative. It's a great way to just engage with our guests. Other examples would be, and we see this in our guest comment cards, an example of treating you like family is, helping large orders or helping people with their groceries out to the car. On a rainy day, we use umbrellas, and we hear over and over again, people write in, they're like, I can't believe, your customer service rep took me right to my car. It was pouring rain. They had an umbrella. It was incredible. Like, these are small things. Like, we kind of look at it and go, wow, this is small, but it actually, like, wouldn't you do that for a family member? You wouldn't not give them an umbrella when it's raining. So it's sharing those stories, and then sharing some of the founding stories as well. The original founding story of the company is a funny one. Tommy Longo was working for one of our competitors when he first came here. And he was a supervisor within the produce area. And his manager came in one day, and this was back in the days when there was no Sunday shopping and the grocery stores were actually closed on Monday. So you would have had 2 days of the store being closed. And Tommy recognized that some of the produce was not going to, it was not going to be of good quality by the time Tuesday hit. So he took the opportunity to mark it down. The supervisor came in and said, what are you doing? And he explained why he chose to do the markdown. And the supervisor said, we pay you to work, not to think. And that really gave Tommy the motivation to say, there's got to be something different. I'm going to start my own business. And so we use that founding story to say, we want you to do the opposite. We want you to use what we call your voglia, which is an Italian word for passion and whatnot, to deliver exceptional service, make those decisions, take a risk. And that's one of the founding stories. So long-winded answer to say lots of ways and lots of things we do to make sure culture is really top of mind for everybody. Mm-hmm.
It makes me think about two different frameworks that I just bumped into. One is the Airbnb. When they founded the Airbnb, they thought that they came up with the 11-star concept that basically think about, a hotel, right? Like what would be basically for Airbnb a 3-star experience? Usually, you find a house, you get into it, it's fine, right? That's a 3-star. It's not bad. That would be a 1-star. What would be a 5-star? Something really equivalent to a hotel. Okay, so you also have maybe some candy, some wine, something like that. Maybe you have an umbrella when you need to get up. Now, what's 7 stars, right? So I don't know. And then they started basically imagining, okay, think about the host, not only doing that, but like giving you personalized recommendations to this town, or, hey, welcome to my city. I just booked you a table in my favorite restaurant, something like that. And then they go all the way to 11 stars, which probably is something that you cannot really do, right? Like, taking you to a tour and here is my surfboard, go surfing and stuff like that. So it seems like just the umbrella thing, like you really thought about how to take it from like the 5-star to the 6-star to the 11-star, just like, yeah, you will have someone who will take you to your specific needs. So you don't waste your time searching, or someone will escort you to the car with the umbrella. So I think it's very thought through, and that's brilliant. I think every business that really wants to be good at something, like you need to ask yourself, how do I get to my 11th star? So that's one framework. The second one is when they talk about culture, they usually talk about stories, heroes, and language. And even like here, how you call, like, I never heard of a grocery store that talks about guests. It's customers. But for you, they're guests. So you really, I hear a lot from what you're saying, mostly like stories, language, probably also talk about heroes, right? Employees who really stand up to your values and so on and so forth. So that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that.
I always say that the one thing that we can all count on in this life is change. And so I know the Longos must have gone through many changes over its almost 70 years. How did you maintain that, especially if we can transition and start thinking about developing your employees, right? Because they're the ones who are making that guest experience what it is. How has that journey been for your organization when you think about the employees and their experience and development?
Yeah, there's so much change going on, right? So we have change within the organization. So examples of that would be the growth. We're opening locations. It's fantastic. Um, we doubled the size of our distribution center in the last year. We're adding in an innovation kitchen and doing a whole host of things. So, there's been technology change, growth change, all very positive. Obviously, for us, a really big change goes from being a privately run, family run business to being in partnership with a publicly traded company that's national across Canada. So really big change there. Other big changes for us, we ran an e-commerce business for, over 25 years. We were kind of the first grocer to actually have e-commerce. And it just made sense at some point in our strategy that we needed to focus more on the bricks and mortar side of things. So we merged that business into one of Empire's businesses. And so we're still able to service our guests, but it's not being run by us. So when you kind of add up all those changes that are happening within the organization, then you layer on, I would say, especially since the pandemic, some of the overarching things that are happening outside of the organization. So, during the pandemic, we were heroes. After the pandemic, quite frankly, the grocery chains, especially in Canada, have really been positioned as not the hero. We were kind of the face of inflation here in Canada. And so that made it very difficult because a lot of our team members are at the front lines. So who comes into the grocery store? Well, the guests that want to chat about that. And so it's made it, quite challenging. And then, of course, the whole tariff situation. So we've had to navigate that. And so my answer to how do you navigate through all of that change is, for us, we really have kept the culture at the center of things. We use the values to make decisions, and we keep reminding ourselves of what our purpose is. So our purpose simply is to fuel happier and healthier lives. And so we always talk about, okay, when we're faced with something difficult, how does this, fuel happier and healthier lives? And as our team members are working through this amount of change, how can we help them? How can we help them to have happier and healthier lives? It's not easy. Sometimes we really just need to be communicating to them. And, as an example, during the initial stages of all the tariffs that were coming out, team members were worried. They were worried for their families. They were worried about the Canadian economy, all of those challenging things. So our president got right on a video and talked and said, hey, here's how it's going to play out in our business. We don't have all the answers. Here are the things we're doing. Here's how you can answer questions for the guests. And here's what we're thinking about for your families. So I think it's just, again, kind of really just using what we do every day in terms of our culture to navigate through a lot of that change and put yourself in the guests' shoes and our team members' shoes. That's really what we do kind of every day.
And so we've been throwing the word culture around a lot today. And I want to talk about the learning culture at Longos. And you had mentioned before, as we were preparing for our time together today, that learning and development has been a part of your story and your whole incredible experience, 20 years at Longos. Can you talk about that a little bit? Talk about what that journey has been like for you and for your organization? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I would say when I joined 20 years ago, one of the first things that I felt was important to do was to capture some time with all three of the founders, because I knew there was magic in a lot of what they did, but I knew nothing was ever kind of documented or kind of pulled into, and I felt like it would actually form our people strategy. So I had the opportunity to meet with all three of them, and thank God I did, because, we now have one founder living with us, and a lot has changed in that period of time, but we kind of took all their ideas, and a big part of their reason for being, as I said earlier on, in growing the business was to provide people opportunity. And then that translated into a very important value in the company, both for the founders and Anthony Longo was very, very big on this, which is lifelong learning. And so that's become a core tenet in the organization, and that's evolved over time. I mean, when I first joined, it was really quite cool. We had a lot of in-classroom training, and we did Longos College, and that was actually even, so it gave, a lot of our leaders the basics in business and leadership. And it was really quite cool because it was also attached to an actual college where they could get credits, because a lot of people didn't necessarily have formal education. So we were able to do that. Now, obviously, we've evolved in ways that we support people to get formal education, and we don't run so much of our programs that way any longer. We do have curriculums. We do still do face-to-face. We utilize growth space for some of that as well. But now we've kind of moved more to the model of just-in-time training for our frontline. So we work with Exonify, and we do kind of daily bite-sized learning every single day. And our operations teams are amazing at really adopting that. And they're very competitive, and it's got gamification and all those fun things. But it gives people, a leg up, because you really have to be quite knowledgeable when you have your guests right in front of you that may have more knowledge than you on something. So, it really helps to reinforce that. And then I would say, really taking a look at how do people progress through their careers and what modality do they need? So it could be virtual. It could be in classroom. It could be having experiences on the job. So we really try to look and say, what are the various ways that people will learn and grow within their careers? And we try to take a kind of a balanced approach. And as much as we can, we're really trying to kind of tailor to the person and to their leader and tie it back to what are we seeing as some of the gaps? What are the areas that we want to build on or leverage, quite frankly, because sometimes you get as much out of people by leveraging their strengths and kind of downplaying what isn't going to be a strength. So I would say that's really been the evolution, and growth space has played a huge part in that journey for us, because being retail, we're lean and mean. I do not have a very extensive L&D team. So I would say we're quite scrappy with what we do.
Which is a great segue to my next question. We talked about the 11-star experience concept of Airbnb, and like how you took basically culture and you made it an actual competitive advantage. So, but if there are two themes on this call, there is one kind of like people development, people growth. You even talking about expansion as a mean to give people more opportunities for growth, which is very, very unique. So, and then you talk about culture. So if we kind of like close the loop and think about the nice thing about the 11-star experience, or your example with the umbrella, is I never saw it before, except for Longos. And I visited, I told you, some of your branches in Ontario. So how do you take the same approach into people development? Except for, we're growing, so we have more opportunities. But let's say our other listeners, what I like about usually guests like yourselves is probably you can give some insights, some ideas of how can you make a really exceptional value proposition or an offering, even though you don't have the richest L&D budget, right? But what do you do? What exceptional things you do in order to take it from, again, the 5-star to the 6-star to the 11-star experience in people's development, skill development, growth?
I think you use a variety of approaches and tools. And I think what's really super important is partnering with the operations, really understanding what does the business need in order to be successful and achieve the results. And then, kind of keying in on those things and really weaving them into whatever learning and development opportunity that you have at the time. If I talk about growth space, as an example, we utilize growth space in every facet that we possibly can. So we're onto the platform. You have 3 different kind of avenues. We've taken advantage of all three, and they work really well. So one-on-one coaching is fantastic because it allows us to have greater reach. Before, in an older model of how you would offer one-on-one coaching as an example of, development for people, it was be very, very expensive to do that. Whereas now we can actually have frontline leaders having the opportunity to have an executive coach, as well as all the way through to our VPs. So I think that's been, a fantastic journey for us. Group coaching has also been amazing for us, because what we've done in that case is we've actually said, okay, we've done it two ways. We've done it cross-functionally because, as you know, development doesn't always just happen in your own group. Sometimes if there's a cross-functional business opportunity, you can learn from each other. So an example, if I was to give one, how we've utilized the group coaching is we've said there has to be a business problem we're trying to solve, and at the same time, we're trying to develop people. So can we do that concurrently? And we've worked with your organization on that. And I'll give an example tying back to our stores. We wanted to take the experience when you go into a grocery store and they demo a product and they provide you a tasting or whatnot. Well, we really felt like we could take that up a notch. Again, this whole concept of we need to be known for treating you like family and trying to achieve kind of that 11-star rating. And so the tasting program needed an overhaul. And that's really a cross-functional project because that requires operations. It requires learning and development to be involved. It requires supply chain to make sure that we get the product there on time, our marketing team and our merchandising teams. So in order to kind of overhaul the program, we needed everybody involved and we needed everybody aligned on what were we trying to solve for. So how we used the coach for the group was to say, the end product is this group needs to come up with a playbook and needs to come up with aligned metrics of success. And hopefully through that process of coaching, doing group coaching together, they'll work better together. And that was the output. And we are seeing tremendous results with our new tasting expert program. We've definitely taken it up a notch. We're seeing consistency across all of the locations. The team members are able to engage better with the guests because there's less friction and problems in kind of that whole process. It may look easy, when we go into a store and see that somebody's demoing you the product, but there's a lot of things that have to happen and happen well. And then being able to kind of measure the pre and post results. So we're seeing tremendous lift in sales, tremendous guest comments, and now that whole team is working better together. And I think they've all learned something. And our end product is now we have a playbook. So that's kind of an example where we've taken learning and development and really, I think, made it quite practical. And the business is thrilled and wants to see us do more of that. So hopefully that kind of answers your question.
I feel like, wow, Liz, it's so holistic. I've been, doing this for a very, very long time. I've met many CHROs, but your face, when you talk about the business, when you talk about your guests, when you talk about your employees, when you talk about learning and learning culture, your whole face lights up. Like I got tingles right now because I can feel the energy, and the love that you have for this organization and for what you do. It's coming right through the podcast waves. And so I have to, I have to thank you for that. And I want to give you an opportunity because I know that there are many out there. You expressed that your experience has been deep in the retail side. And there's a quote that you gave us earlier that I want to read back to you. You emphasized that being a successful CHRO means being a business leader that happens to have responsibility for HR. I have to give you an opportunity to talk about that before we wrap up. Can you please share with us what you mean by that and what it means for those who might be listening?
Absolutely. And I think this goes for any function, right? If you're a CIO, if you're a CFO, I actually think that you need to think of yourself as really a business leader. And when you get to that level, you really need to be thinking about the business first. We often talk about like take your functional hat off when you're working through things, and it's difficult to do. But I think for HR folks, it's just super important to really understand the business. And it's wonderful to be a partner, but you can't really be a partner if you don't know how the business makes money. So I think starting from there, like how does the business make money? What are the most important things to the business? And what are the objectives that the business is trying to accomplish? So getting out and being in the business, like spending time. So I spend time in the stores. I did the 1 year secondment, and it was probably the most uncomfortable experience at first. I felt like I had been in the company over 10 years when I decided to do it. And I felt like I was in a brand new organization. The operations, they speak a different language. They have their own acronyms. And it made me realize, I walked away with it, two really big learnings, well, probably three, but two for sure. One is our business is pretty complicated. So sometimes when you're sitting in your role as an HR professional, you can kind of look on the other side and have, wonder why are they not executing my programs exactly as I thought? Why, we put so much thought and energy and time into all these pieces. But if you don't make them very practical, because when you actually work in the business and realize how complex some of these businesses are, you can it's a walk in your shoes kind of moment, right? And that's really what I was talking about, is just thinking yourself as a business person, I think makes you a better HR person. Because for me, having gone and stepped out and done that 1 year assignment, when I got back into the HR seat, we started unpacking some of our programs. And I was like, oh my goodness, no wonder some of these things don't work. Because when I was on the other end, I was frustrated by some of our programs. I could see, it's just, if it doesn't land practically, it's not necessarily going to get executed. So that's kind of what I meant when I talked about being a business person first, because I think it'll just make you that much more successful, credible, and hopefully the business succeeds. That's kind of the ultimate goal.
Absolutely. Liz, well, you have given us so many different things to think about, and what an incredible legacy that you are still building as a part of the Longos family. Please leave us with some words of wisdom or anything you'd like to share, what you're most proud of as you built your people and culture strategy at Longos. Anything you'd like to share with us as last words?
I would say what I'm most proud of when I think about it is really what we started with, which is the fact that the culture is the differentiator here. But even over 20 years, like I see that we're really sustaining it. It's evolving constantly, but it has not gotten lost at all as our differentiator through all the change that I outlined. So I'd say that's a really proud moment in it. It's not, that's the organization. I play a part in that, but for me, that's really proud. That's I think unique for us. And so I'm very proud of that. I think other parts that I think about of being proud is certainly I've got a great team, and that team really emulates what I talked about in terms of being business partners and being in the business. And that's both from an HR perspective. I also lead our risk function, and they really want to understand, like, how can they help the business improve? And a lot of times the business will come forward thinking what they want. And I love watching our leaders be able to actually deliver something that's completely different than what they asked for, because they know the business so well. And so for me, that's proud. And it's also just proud to see how many of our team members, both within the function that I lead, have great careers with us and have grown and be given opportunities. But when I look at all the tools that we've implemented along the way and been given the opportunity to do so, we've retained so many great, talented individuals, and they're actually choosing us to have their career with us. So that's proud, because it's not just people staying and having long tenure, but they're staying, having long tenure, and they're evolving with, what the business needs are. So I would say, those are all things that really make me proud. And I've just really enjoyed being able to share the story. Hopefully, it's going to be meaningful for somebody listening.
I have no doubt. I know it's been meaningful for me and for Omar, and just thank you so much for your time today. And I haven't been to Longos yet, but I'm gonna have to make a trip to Canada
Excellent.
to get into one. And I hope it's raining so that someone pulls out an umbrella because I want to see that
That's
too.
right. We'll help you fill your buggy, no problem.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for being on
Great.
Skilled, Liz.
Thanks, Omer. Thanks, Cheryl. It's been great.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Liz.
Much appreciate you.